Hi, it is October 6th. It's a little after 7 o'clock in the morning, and my name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla with your legislative update for both this morning and yesterday, since we've actually worked for about 23 straight hours. We started our day yesterday on the floor debating a series of massive statewide budget cuts, some of which are very necessary because we have a huge deficit caused by our choices to cut taxes over the last 12 years, mostly for corporations and wealthy individuals, and the drop in oil prices, which I've talked about in previous videos. So the House Republicans were proposing very, very large cuts to all sorts of state programs. This includes public schools, 1.5% to all schools, and that'll really affect teachers, support programs, that sort of thing. Universities got really, really hammered. There was a 5% cut to universities. The negotiation actually came down from higher than that. And one of the interesting things is they put language in there recommending that those cuts go to non-educational sources. But that's things like campus police, the counseling services, military and veteran services, disabled students, that sort of thing. And so hopefully the language in there is only a suggestion, and it will allow universities the flexibility to make those cuts in the best way possible. But it will probably mean for Las Cruces that New Mexico State University will have to lay off people. They're getting hit pretty hard. The AG's office got hit. They're the folks that have, for instance, a special office to prosecute child porn offenders. So we're going to have a lot less of an ability to prosecute those folks that commit these really bad crimes. It was actually a fairly similar bill to the one that came over from the Senate, except that the Senate package of different bills also included a freeze on the corporate income tax decrease. And what that would have done was raised $15 million this year and $25 million next year. That wasn't a raise in any taxes. It was a freeze in decreases. But Republicans did not want to mess with this, and that's one of the reasons that we all voted no on it. They actually had a really hard time finding votes to vote for all these cuts. There was a 4-hour pause in the middle of the debate, so they could make deals or pressure or whatever had to do with their members, and they finally got it. Now, to not try to be too partisan about this one, universities do have some room for efficiencies. We definitely have probably more branch campuses than we need. For instance, there's a branch of Highlands University in Rio Rancho, where there's also a branch of UNM, and we need to find ways of being more efficient and effective with our university administration, but these things are going to go way past that, so that's going to be tough. The next vote was a vote on a tax package, which I was pretty involved with. It was a committee I was working on, and I also was involved with a freeze they had on that bill from a couple of days ago. I had an amendment to put the corporate tax freeze back in and fund getting rid of the rape kit backlog, funding local cops, and funding sexual assault services. Their guys didn't want to vote on that because why they don't want the corporate tax the freeze going into place. They also didn't want to take a vote against rape victims and that sort of thing. The deal is that they wouldn't bring film credits down to the floor, as well as a couple other things, and I would pull that, and we would vote on an otherwise clean bill. And I'll give credit to Republican Jason Harper, chair of the tax committee. There's some pretty good fixes in here, not everything I'm crazy about, but it closes some loopholes in the high wage tax credit, changes the definition in hospital tax credits that folks were using that weren't supposed to be using it. Actually gives a appropriation from the legislative retirement account, which was way overfunded, into helping with the deficit, and so we were able to pass that. However, after that, and this was at 12:45 at night, they brought up the death penalty, and this has been a very emotional thing. A lot of us were extremely upset. I was frankly angry that this was brought up at 12:45. We had a 2-hour discussion on the Democrat side on why transparency for this was needed, why it should be moved to later in the day so that people would have a chance to participate. And usually with very, very controversial efforts like this, the gallery is completely full of people on both sides of the aisle, and today it was completely empty. And there was a 2-hour debate on whether or not it should be had. They obviously won it. They have the votes. There was a 3-hour debate on the death penalty itself. They obviously won it. They had the votes, and that was done at 5:45 a.m. Look, this is very, very obviously a campaign trick that the governor is using to try to distract people from the really terrible economy that we've got going on in the state. And frankly, because Donald Trump is really dragging down a lot of their candidates for the election that we're going to be having in 4 weeks. It's pretty cynical. It was a really, really terrible thing for transparency. I come from Las Cruces, where we don't get Albuquerque TV, so webcasting and availability of things on internet is actually doubly important for people where I live. And a lot of us were upset. I was very upset. I view this as a real fundamental failure in us moving forward with being more accessible to people. Passed a couple more funding measures. I'm going to go get a shower and some breakfast. We're going to come back here at 11. Hopefully sign out. This has been very, very frustrating, and there's some really hard cuts here that are going to affect the state for a long time to come. So that's pretty much it. If you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any of the issues, I'd love to hear from you. Sorry, I've been up for a long time. Hope everyone has a good day. Thanks.